My question is, what ultimately led to you saying, hey, man, you know what? I've been here. I've done that. It's time to ride off in the sunset as far as my wrestling career goes.
There were a lot of factors to it, man. I mean, it wasn't fun for me anymore. I felt like, up at the WWE, I always felt like there was something fighting against me. I mean, whether I was being paranoid, which whatever, it's just the feeling that I had.
Paranoia exists in the business with everybody.
And, it turned out to not be very much fun for me. I felt as though the work that I put forward, the monetary gain that I got was great, but life's not about just money, man. I mean, I wasn't having fun anymore. The only thing that I enjoyed was every once in a while going out there and pressing some dude and dropping him, spearing a guy, and walking out of the ring and grabbing a kid and handing him the belt and, picking him up over my head and making him smile and forget about every single thing that's going on in his life and just being in the moment. That's what I miss about it. But when Rosie, I had a match, and it's documented. I've said this before. When I left the match, I won the match. I'm the hero. I come out, I grab a kid, 5 years old, I pick him up. He's awesome. I walk to the back, I pass Rosie, and I love Rosie to death, man. He's one of the best dudes ever. But he was the superhero in training, and it said shit on his shirt. And here I am, trying to be the eternal good guy and the superhero for kids and speaking on Capitol Hill about cockfighting. And I know it's a fucking work. I get it. There's got to be good and bad and this side and that side. But it was the straw that broke the camel's back, man.
One question I do want to ask you is if, Vince shakes your hand and Vince is happy to see you. You've worked for the WWE twice. Why both times did it end with you getting let go so quickly?
The conspiracy of the Teddy Hart story is when I was in rehab, I don't know if Stephanie McMahon wrote it down or Ann Russo wrote it down, but they wrote down $60 million lost revenue on Teddy Hart so far.
How?
That's what they said. They said, we've lost $60 million of lost revenue not being able to rely on you. And I said, I don't understand. What do you want me to do? And so I finished the rehab program, and I account a lot of it to Brett's fear of me taking his name that he worked so hard for, and he did such a great job for so many years, to let some reckless, loose cannon he doesn't know possibly become Prime Minister of Canada type of power with Brett's name. The power I have right now, Chris, just being Brett's nephew, as long as I'm sober and I don't drink much, but I will get into I've done GHB before, and I used to do it a lot, but I never had a problem with it ever. I always thought it was a safe alternative to alcohol, and it helped me sleep when I was on the road. And when I take steroids, which I've been taking steroids since I was 17 years old, guys. I signed when I was 17 years old as 148 pounds.
With the WWE?
With WWE.
At 17?
At 17, Bruce Pritchard had to cheat the contract to get me in there, and I was 17, 18 years old, and then 18 I got the second contract contract, which was a huge one. And that money, my dad took all my money from me. He gave me one credit card with a certain limit, and all the rest of the money got invested into a medical marijuana grow up in California because he said, you're not going to last in WWE, you're a up, but you're going to smoke pot. I can already tell you're hooked on pot. And if your personality type is what I think it is, if you try cocaine, you're dead. You are a dead man. Mark my words.
Go on, Ninja.
The Bob Collins from our message board, he wants to know, what was the reasons you jumped ship to WCW in 95?
Well, there's an interesting story behind that. I had my contract was coming up at WWE at the time, and you had to give a 90-day notice to Vince if you wanted to leave, else your contract would automatically roll over in writing, certified. So this was like November. My 90-day notice came up like November 25th. I gave him the 90-day notice, which meant my contract was going to be up like in March or something of 95. But we continued to talk and negotiate, trying to work out a deal. And I went on without a contract, which was a risk for him and myself, for months on end until September of 95. Stinger called me up on the phone and said, hey, we're starting the Monday Night Show up against you guys. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, and came up with a conversation. I was no longer under contract technically with Vince. And Stinger's like, you got to be kidding me. Well, he talked to Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff was not a fan of mine at all and wasn't really all that interested. But Stinger goes, man, we could use him on that first Monday Night Show. It would be a really cool surprise. So Eric was like, well, yeah, maybe we could work something like that. So Eric goes, the only thing is, I don't want him to tell anybody because they'll get out on the internet, so he has to leave without giving even a 2-week notice, which, to be honest with you guys, even Alexa back then, I was very uncomfortable with that because Vince had done a lot of really nice things with me and for me, and personally, we had a very good relationship, so I was very uncomfortable. That was like the stipulation of me coming in there. So and they offered me, at the time, not the kind of money I was used to making, but my career at WWE wasn't exactly on fire at the time, so I decided for the benefit of my career and my family to go ahead and jump ship without 2-week notice. So I actually went from a house show on a Sunday night to a Monday night appearance on WCW, much to the shock of Vince McMahon, and the rest is kind of history for Monday nights. So it ended up being full of surprises from there on out, but it was actually kind of a last-minute decision right before the Monday Night War started because I was no longer under contract with WWE. I had been wrestling without a contract for months, believe it or not. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Now, something else that's on the internet recently, they're saying that WWE was thinking about doing kind of a WCW theme for the Hall of Fame next year when they're in Atlanta for WrestleMania. And you were one of the names that's mentioned that they're thinking about putting in the Hall of Fame. Have you heard anything about this?
I haven't heard anything about that from WWE. I've heard that rumor about the WrestleMania coming around. They're going to do a WWE theme, and a lot of people ask me why I think it'd be in the Hall of Fame, and I don't know. I don't know if my out of the ring antics, and to put it mildly, and things will always overshadow my in the ring persona or career that I had for 15 years from Basic Someone or not. It would obviously be a tremendous honor if my character and my personality was ever even thought to be in the Hall of Fame, and I would very graciously accept. But I have no idea if it's in cards either in the near future, like next year or ever. So it would be a real honor, definitely.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I don't know if walkout is the right term. This was back in 2006, and WWE had made... See, in 2005, WWE did ECW One Night Stand at the Hammerstein Ballroom. And we did a one-night reunion show, and it was just spectacular. So at the time, that was the moment where if you're going to create a new ECW, that was the moment. But WWE passed on that opportunity. As we started heading into 2006, the decision was made, let's do another show since the first one was so successful. So it was again at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and this time it was Rob Van Dam, who had won the Money in the Bank briefcase. cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase against John Cena, who was everything the ECW audience hated. So we had this parallel universe from the WWE universe of Rob Van Dam being this highly emotional favorite against John Cena, who was booed unmercifully by the ECW crowd. And right after that pay-per-view, the promotion itself, ECW, was brought back to life, but under the WWE umbrella. And the best equivalent I can give you to it is if you're going to promote it as ECW, it has to be ECW. It has to have a certain ECW feel to it. It has to be authentic, or the audience is not going to accept it.
They'll see right through it. Yep.
It'd be the equivalent of a music producer today saying, "Hey, we got the Beatles. It's the Beatles." But you know, John's not alive anymore, so we replace him with Miley Cyrus. And George is not alive anymore, so we're going to bring in Justin Bieber. Because, hey, who's bringing in Justin Bieber? And
Sure.
Instead of Paul and Ringo, well, we're going to have an African-American and we're going to have an Asian to create diversity.
Have to.
We want the Beatles to be more global. Can't just be four guys from Liverpool. We want them to be more global. So we have Miley and Justin, and we have an African-American and an Asian to appeal to everybody. We have a female in the group now. We cover all demographics. Yeah, but it's not the Beatles. It's not the Beatles. Don't call them the Beatles.
For sure.
Call them the super group, but don't call them the Beatles. So WWE was calling it ECW, and it was anything but ECW. And the audience hated it. And as the audience kept firing back against this presentation to us, I had a scenario. We were walking into the Elimination Chamber, and I had a scenario, once again, understanding the influence of mixed martial arts. I wanted Punk to choke out the Big Show, who was the champion, in the first 5 minutes of the Elimination Chamber. So then you would have the scenario of, a new champion will be crowned in this match. Now, the two scenarios that I had were either Punk makes it to the last elimination, and Bobby Lashley turns heel on Punk, and you have Punk chase Lashley to WrestleMania, or Punk wins it. I also had even a third suggestion, that Lashley eliminates Punk with controversy, and Rob Van Dam wins it. Where Lashley would do a German suplex on Punk, and they both have their shoulders down. Lashley would lift his shoulder up at the last second, but Van Dam hits a top rope splash. So as Lashley pins Punk, Van Dam pins Lashley. But the big push that I had was for Punk to be crowned the champion, and now we would have a unique personality who was not WWE branded that was going to be the face of the promotion. And Vince rejected it. And by this time, Vince and I were so at each other's throats that it was really my cue to leave. I was burned out. I needed to go away. I had lost my love and my passion for what we were doing. I kept seeing the rise of mixed martial arts as far more exciting. I was launching my agency in New York City, and I just had lost my passion for it. So Vince and I ended up butting heads to such a degree that it was obvious that this town ain't big enough for the two of us. And since he's the majority stake shareholder and the chairman of the board, if one of these guys is going to leave town, my suggestion to you would be that guy's going to beat me.
It's not going to be Vince. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Good math on your part.
He wasn't going to go home and say, here are the keys, you run it through.
Yeah, here's the jet. Enjoy, Paul.
Right. It just wasn't going to happen. And it took 5.5 years for us to end up even wanting to work together again. And that's where we are today. We've come to where we are now, and I think, I've known Vince in many ways since I was 14 years old. So it's been a long road with the two of us.
Your pro wrestling days. I was just on YouTube I was watching some wrestling stuff. I had a great time when you came out and you were with the WWE, but abruptly one day, all of a sudden you weren't. Right, you went from headlining things. Sometimes they didn't even have you wrestle; they'd have you refereeing, and you were still a star attraction. That fire was still hot, and all of a sudden you were out of the WWE. What happened there? Did you leave on your own? Did you have an argument with the guys in the office? Why did you leave wrestling?
No, actually, it came down to being away from my family. I felt like I was being swallowed up, and then I was losing my identity. And I just went to Vince and said, "Listen, I'm struggling here," and Vince let me out of my contract. So there was a lot more to it than that, but basically that's what it came down to. Is that it just felt like I was losing my family, I was losing my identity because I was constantly going from place to place to place, and it felt like I couldn't slow down. And then my kids. I remember one time I went home and I missed a dance. I missed a wrestling match, a couple wrestling matches. I missed a birthday party, and I was gone for 10 days. And then I left again 2 days later, 3 days later. And then when I came back, I had missed my daughter's 16th. It was a thing where you brought your daughter and daddy dance thing, and I missed that. So I said, "Hey, that's it. I can't do this anymore." And I went to Vince and I said, "Hey, I just, I feel like I'm losing my identity. I can't find myself." And I said, I just can't do this anymore. And Vince, like I said, there's a whole lot more to it, but basically that's what it came down to.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I had always wondered, and there was never an announcement. All of a sudden, you just weren't on Raw anymore. And I'm going, well, I wonder what happened there. With wrestling particularly, they gossip more than we do. There's an expression. Jim Cornette was on this show. He told me, you can, if you want to get your word out, you can telegram, telephone, or tell a wrestler. They're going to spread it. But there was never anything out there. And I remember as a fan, you had so much intensity. You had the look, and then you knew how to wrestle. We didn't know that about you. You stepped right in and knew how to wrestle. We didn't know that you had done that before. And it was just such a natural fit. My buddies and I would sit around and go, "Where's Shamrock? When's he coming back?"
Yeah, it was, but I think the reason why it happened that way was because I didn't tell anybody. I basically just went to Vince, and it was a conversation between me and Vince.
Gotcha.
The thing that at least was the rumor, or maybe you had even said it, was when you started winding down, because I think that was in about 2009, and you left in 10.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why you left was because the PG-13 or PG direction.
I just felt like they went against everything that our business was. I really felt like they were just killing our business, man. They killing the art form of it, which was what I loved about it. Well, just things like that. They were going to start doing things that just didn't make sense. Like, that was just something that we did, man. That was something we kind of bled. This was one of those things
in
that
certain situations,
especially like this, when there's a title involved and
yes.
there's a cage match involved.
Yeah.
It makes harder for people to really get sucked into it too. They were taking our tools away. They were taking our art form away. They're robbing us of our tools. This is how we made a living. This is what made us so close. These were our little secrets.
Yeah.
This is what made us special. This is what made fans respect us. Because I still say this, when I think the guys today, they're never going to have the same respect, because we went to war. We went to war and we bled for our fans, and we did all this and that, and it was harsh. We brutalized ourselves, to entertain them, and they respected us for that. The guys nowadays, even if they're willing to do it, they can't. They can't go to war like we did.
Interesting.
So I don't think the respect factor will ever be there. It won't be the same. I don't think so.
Did you find? How did you find when you finally did come back after 4 years?
Like I said, it was weird at first, but really because the crowd was just so strange, man. I just didn't get like some of the random chants, and they just started chanting random stuff in the middle of matches for no reason. It's
like
they
what?
weren't. Like
yes, or
like they saw, in the middle of CM Punk for a match that even after he left the company, we'd be out there having a match, or even not even just my match, other matches. CM Punk, CM, like why? I don't get it.
Right.
Why? I get that they miss him, but why are you chanting his name now?
Did you feel, as far as like, the old PG-13 or PG rules now, did you have any time where you felt handcuffed by that?
Yes, I mean, somewhat. Not so much, though. I mean, I actually, it was even a couple times when I asked Vince if I could do this or that, and surprisingly, he said yes. And really, like, just simple things like nut shots.
Wow, because those are pretty taboo still.
Yeah, no, there's stuff in them. Is there any way we can get away with a nut shot? Yeah, I think it fits this situation. I was like,
wow.
I just ran. I'd leave Gorilla. I'd just run out, before he had time to think about it. Yeah. But yeah, it was a couple things, he let us get away with, and I was actually surprised. Of course, there's no blood involved anywhere, but
right.
I was never really in that match where it necessitated blood.
Yeah, and these are even little things too, like heel tactics, like using the ref or pushing the ref into the ropes so the guy falls on the top rope. Like that stuff is all gone too.
Yeah,
they say it's hard to be a heel now,
right?
Because you can't use a lot of those tools that we used to use all the time. So
it is what it is. I mean, I guess I didn't notice it that much, but I kind of I always reached for, the golden ring. I always, wanted to see what I could get away with. And if I can get away with it, I will, if I can bring something back.
Well, and you also have a little bit of leeway because you have proved yourself. And in this day and age in WWE, there's a lot of guys that haven't.
Yeah.
And that's why they love having Batista back or Jericho back or Brock or whoever.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of guys that really can do that.
Yeah. Another, what I noticed as well is there's not a lot of guys there who question what they're being asked to do. They don't say, well, this doesn't make sense. They don't go and talk to Vince. They don't, talk to the agent and say, I don't like this, man. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel right.
And questioning is not a bad thing.
Not at all.
It's not, doesn't make you a jerk to do that.
No, you should, man. You should participate. This is your character. You have to be protective. Be protective of your character, of your storyline. That is I'll never forget Shawn Michaels saying, this is what's most important to me. My match, my storyline. Yeah. My match, my storyline. What everybody else is doing is their business. Yeah. This is what's important to me.
That's a great point.
Absolutely.
You were talking about you sitting down and asking Vince for your release. You were ready to go and do something else. And you've been gone from them now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But, dude, I mean, so you got a great job. You're in the office, and you're paying those gimmicks they send in the mail called bills. You're not, taking too many bumps or any bumps, and you won't out.
I wasn't happy.
Right.
I went to WWE. You can't put a price tag on your own happiness.
No doubt.
We went. I had my little run. It was nothing memorable from 2001 till 2004. Then they put me in the office. I loved hiring people and fulfilling their dreams, and I took that job very, very serious. The behind the scenes is what killed me. And what made me hate wrestling at times. I didn't want to be that guy. Now we're bringing back ECW, the first one-night stand, write the show with Paul. It's a success. I think I'm going to get the gigantic, hey, this is it. They're going to see me. Not only did I write the show, I agented every match. The pay-per-view did millions of dollars for everybody. This is it. Vince is going to see it in me. Vince got to see the real Tommy Dreamer. And it was Monday. I specifically showed up to work on that Monday. I went on fire that match with the Dudleys and Sandman. I had Bubba caned me in my ear that the doctor said my ear may fall off. That's how severe trauma I had. I wanted my ear to fall off while I was sitting in that office. Nicole DeRazio was our mutual friend, the one who hooked us up to do the show. She was my saving grace in that office because she was my friend. Mark Carano was my saving grace, and John Laurinaitis was my saving grace too. But I wanted to show because you cannot outwork Vince McMahon. And I wanted to show that Vince, even though my ear may fall off, if my ear falls off at this desk, I want you to know my ear fell off for you. Because I have decided that besides my own father, Vince McMahon is the most influential man in my life. Because this is all I've ever wanted to do since I'm 9 years old. And it was from the majority of what I saw him do. And it's, from wrestling. So then we're bringing 2006, pay-per-view comes, and hey, we're going full board. It's Tommy, you're in charge. We want this to be different. I was actually Paul's boss, which Paul was a pleasure. then I saw it become more of the corporate. Just became another WWE product. And I was quickly removed from that because my opinions are usually different than the corporate structure. Anyway, the new ECW is going. You get told a lot of things. They didn't care for a lot of the ECW guys. I was happy they got on, national television. I was happy to be there for WrestleMania. They were still dangling that carrot. For me personally, for 3 years that show was on the air, I was the highest rated main event every year. They were doing nothing with me, but whenever I was in the main event, I was the highest rated guy. Me and Chavo Guerrero won 4. Me and Mark Henry won 3. Me and Vladimir Kozlov, 3 segments, a 1-1, which was like a UFC shoot fight for me.
Yeah.
Highest rated, and they still wouldn't go with me. And so I went to Vince, and when you weren't in this situation, when you're in WWE and you're making money, it's amazing. When you're not a top guy and or you meet your downside and they're bringing you to TVs, you're making not a whole lot of money. You're making like $500 a night. They may just use you for TVs. With that $500 a night, you got to pay your hotel for 2 nights, a rental car. You're not making money. And you're coming to a place where I was just getting beat for the sake of getting beat. And I just said it wasn't worth it anymore. My kids this was 2009. My daughters were 4, 5. I was on the road 300 days a year. And I just knew, you kind of, even though I had just signed a contract with them, everything I did in my life, and especially there, was real. My contract was coming up. I went to Vince. Vince, listen, you're Vince McMahon. You're a businessman. I'm the highest rated dude. My contract's up. If you don't, I'm giving you my out. If you don't want me to stick around, I will lose to Jack Swagger and or to Christian at Extreme Rules, and I'm going. I'll say goodbye. But let me prove it to you. He went with it. It worked. 3 months later, I'm back in the same boat. And so I just went to him. I said, Vince, listen, and I just signed a deal. And I just said, I can't be here anymore. There was one person in WWE that does not like me. He would bury me in all the meetings, and I had friends there. I had agents there. Everybody liked me except one person.
Right.
And I get it.
Yeah.
So I said, Vince, how do I? And he said, Tommy, I don't want you to go. And I looked right in his eyes, and I said, how do I stay? I can't work any harder. You're supposed to be this great businessman, and you're not pushing me for the ratings. And then he was like, well, we're going to go with NXT. And he goes, you're not, the only thing you don't have is youth. I said, then you're right. So then I should go. I don't want to be this guy who just hangs around.
So what did he say?
He said, okay, I'm sorry. I'd rather, he said, I need guys for you to teach and be on the road with, blah, blah, blah. I said, but I really am not on the road. And if your heart ain't into it, and I don't ever want to be that guy who hated wrestling. So it was funny because, Vince is a little crazy at times, and we love him to death. But my last match was supposed to be against Lance Hoyt, Vance Archer. I got beat in 6 minutes in Orlando. That was it. I remember going home, and I was done. That Thursday, the head writer calls me up, and he's like, well, we had a meeting, and in the meeting, when you're in talent relations, if someone is let go from the company or someone leaves the company, they send a mass email saying that person's no longer with the company, So they said, would you mind coming back? We're doing TV at the Meadowlands. Vince kind of like cut a promo on us. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they said Vince was not happy with the main event of Evan Bourne versus Matt Hardy. And he said, well, what are you going to do? What about Tommy Dreamer? And now the whole room was silent because they knew that I just had left. Right. And someone said, well, Tommy's no longer with us. And Vince, they said, stood up and was like, what the hell happened to Tommy? And they were like, he doesn't work here anymore. Oh, no. And Vince was like, that's not true. Yeah, yes, he does. And they're like, well, okay. They didn't want to say.
Right. You're the one that let him go.
Yeah. And so they asked me to come back, and I had an amazing farewell at the Meadowlands. My wife, my kids were there. I got to say goodbye, and it was against Zack Ryder. And I cut a promo. I went long, and the first person through that curtain was Vince. He gave me this big hug. It was great. They had all the wrestlers there. It was real. I mean,
Yeah.
it was as real as television ever going to get.